Hi, it's Christy from Christy Sews Cool Stuff. Today I'm going to do a sew along for simplicity 16-18. It's a few different caftan tops and pants and shorts. I'm going to do view C, a super basic top with a cold shoulder detail. So it's got a little bit of visual interest in it. It's a really fast sew. In this video, I'm going to talk through how to use the sewing pattern and how to cut the fabric and how to choose the fabric, how to understand some basic things like what's a facing, what's understitching. Some of the terminology in sewing patterns can be a little bit hard to understand if you're new. So I'm excited to show you everything that I know about sewing. Please click subscribe, like the video, leave comments. I'm always wanting to learn something new. So if I got something wrong or you have a different way of sewing, I would love to hear about it. Grab your sewing machine, grab this pattern, grab some fabric, and sew along with me. So in a sewing pattern, page 1 of 1 shows you all the different garments and all the different pattern pieces inside the pattern. And they're numbered. So as you can see, it looks like there's 2 different tops. Pieces 1, 2, and 7 and 8 are both tops. That's because these 2 tops are starting with the same basic pattern. They just have a little bit of different details on them. This top is completely different with the cold shoulder. There's also 2 pattern, front and back for pants and front and back for the shorts. Now this is my pattern that I'm going to work from for the top. If you're sewing view C, that you're going to need pattern pieces 7, 8, 9, and 10, which are the front and the back, and the front facing and the back facing. Now I found them in here, opened them up, and then folded them back nicely so that I can still put them back in the envelope and keep them really nice in case I want to make a different top later, or the pants, or just a different size. I still have this as like a master pattern. So this is an interfacing fabric. Interfacings typically go underneath to stiffen. So I transferred the pattern onto here. I put the pattern underneath it and I traced on top of it. It's really nice because it's got a grid. Center front and center back are usually on a 90-degree angle because they're on a fold or they have a seam, and they need to have a 90-degree angle here so that it goes across. And this grid is really good. You can cut right on it, move it, and lengthen, which is what I did. Or if you're shortening, you can overlap. I laid out the store-bought tissue pattern and then put this paper on top of it. So these are the 4 pattern pieces that I need for this top. Here is center back. It has notches so that you can match up the facing piece, and notches so you can match the front and back together. Make sure everything's on. And here's a notch because it has a center back seam. So you know when you're pinning that you're on grain. You want to pin a few different places so you don't get to the bottom and the left half is shorter than the right half, or vice versa. Here's another notch. So I like to cut them out, and I also cut them out like this on the fabric so that you can see them. So there's the cold shoulder. So as you see, when you put the front and back pattern pieces on top of each other, they match up perfectly at the notches. Same thing along the side seams. If they don't match up, you have a problem. So the other 2 pattern pieces are called a facing. Now these are cut on the fold instead of having a seam in them. They go underneath the fashion layer, and it's meant to make the neckline lay nice and flat, and you wouldn't want to add more bulk with a center front seam right there. So see, when you match them up, there's a little bit of a difference between the facing piece and the actual outer layer of the garment. And that is because the facing is going to be cut on the fold so that you don't add any needless bulk to your neckline. And this center back piece has a seam in it. So it's going to have a seam running down the center back there. You really want it to lay flat. So there's something called understitching that you do to make it sit really flat so it doesn't roll up on your neck while you're wearing it. I learn by reading and writing. So the first time that I read the pattern instructions, I write them down so that I can think about it as I'm writing, what it's actually saying to do with the pattern pieces. Then after I cut the fabric, I might read it one more time and kind of mentally block it out the way you might if you're blocking out a play or choreography, so that I can think through, oh no, French seams won't work there because it's got this seam here, or oh, if I'm using underlining, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna need to change it this way. And then troubleshoot any problems that I might see coming up. The last time I read it is right before I sew. And at that point, I'm really strategizing how to do as many things at once. So if I know there's stay stitching around the collar and there's also a seam to do on the facing, I'll do those first. Then I'll move the chunk that I just sewed to the ironing board and press everything all at once. Most of the time consuming stuff is cutting the fabric, pinning, pressing, because pressing and pinning is really where you spend most of your time. The sewing is fast. You sit there and zoom through. So here's the fabric I chose. It is voile. It is 100% cotton. It's got a really fun geometric print. It's called Mojave. I think it was from fabric.com. For View C, it's recommending different fabric, where it's recommending cottons and batiks for the caftans and pants. It's actually recommending crepeback satin, laundered silks and rayon, gauze, voile, or voile, depending on how you learn to pronounce it, double georgette. So I picked voile. It has a little bit of a sheer quality to it, so I decided to remove the center front seam. It's gonna be great for the beach and for the park. It's really lightweight. I could see wearing it to some fun summer cookouts. So when I cut the pattern, I used this ruler and lined up 5/8 of an inch with my pattern overhanging. And instead of cutting right down the middle, I actually cut on the fold here. I was nervous about having a center front seam right in the middle, and maybe it was sheer and distracting. So I cut it on the fold instead. I scooched the pattern over 5/8 of an inch. I measured it with a clear ruler. I hope you learned a lot and you're ready to start sewing. Stay tuned for the next part of the video where I'm going to construct the top. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.